Quick intro. Let's start with that. So, who am I? I'm a full-time IT architect, and next to that, I'm in Web3 as an independent security researcher, currently doing that part-time. Um, I'm also starting a YouTube channel, which really. Sorry. Yes, thanks. So it's a channel. Well, you can guess it. It's also about architecture and the mental mind map of code bases when auditing. Also based on security. It will be like a two-sided channel. The first part will mostly be explanation on architecture level about, let's say, account abstraction, proxies, different kind of ERCs like ERC 20 and stuff from first from a development point of view and then from a security point of view. So that's part one. The second part will be just diving into code bases, reading them, and laying out the an architecture and a mental mind map. So that's coming up. I do not have any videos at the moment. This session is actually kind of a kickstart of it. So next week I will be dropping some videos. So the schedule for now for this session is I'm going to start with a quick note, then some explanation about architecture and the mental mind map, the importance of it, especially for an auditor, do's and don'ts, and we're gonna end it with a demo where we go two or three through a code base to have a high level overview of it. So let's just start with a quick note. So through the session, I'm going to tell you about some stuff which you should do or you shouldn't do. So this is not necessarily what you should like. Don't keep, keep don't take it like very heavy. It's mostly just going to be to be a guideline. So if I'm going to say you should do A, B, and C, like definitely try that out. But if along the way when you're going to perform this, you're noticing like B doesn't work out for me, I'd rather do A, C, and then B, whatever. Um, do that. Like, it's up to you. This is just a guideline, and you should decide what works best for you. Exactly. So everyone has a different path, a different way of working, which works best for them. Like in the beginning, you can copy someone, but eventually along the road, you should create your own way. So let's talk about the architecture versus mind map. So for me, the architecture is static, where the mind map is a bit more dynamic. So what do I mean by that? Is let's say we have the blockchain and we have the parties which interacts with it. Let's say we have like A is the parties, B is the blockchain itself, and C is the network. So for me, that's the architecture. So what's the mind map then? The mind map is basically all the paths which you could follow in that architecture. Um, it's dynamic because you could take a path which is from A, B to C, but you could also walk a path from B, C to A. So in that case, it's a bit more dynamic. And when I talk about mental mind map as far as smart contracts or the code base concerns, it's mostly on the flows we can we can like draw out or follow. So that's from this is more of a quick note on what's the difference between the two. From now on, I'm mostly going to talk about the mental mind map. I'm also going to lay out a bit of the architecture later in the demo. Mostly it's going to be the mental mind map, so I'm going to use that from now on. So following on the importance of like a mental mind map is like everywhere as soon as you wake up till even your dreams. The mental mind map is there. So let's start with an example, which is kind of silly, but it really works. Like, let's say you close your eyes and you imagine your house. You just like you're at the front door. You entered your house and you're at the front door, and you have you know like immediately know the house and which rooms they are. So if I would say go to room one or go to room two or go to room one and two, you're immediately able to do that in like just a second or even less. And uh, a really good example is when we're gaming. Like let's say we're playing a game and we have this final boss, which is really hard to beat. We already tried like 20 times. What you're actually constructing is a mental mind map on uh, the final boss, his moves, and the attacks you're performing. So let's say you start at A and you perform an attack which is B, and you miss, which goes back to I, and then to A, or you perform an attack which is F or C, and it has a different outcome. So that's like you're creating a mental mind map of that scenario, and eventually, when you have a full picture of it, you're able to defeat that boss because of the mind map. So if you were to have a mind map, it will be just you hitting buttons and hoping that you defeat it. So that is, instead of that, you have the mental mind map. You know how to move in order to defeat the boss. So in terms of smart contract, what does this mental mind map mean? So we can divide it in basically three subjects, um, which you will need to create a mental mind map over. Which is first of all is the protocol. Like look at a code base, and the first thing you want to do is like what am I looking at? What kind of protocol is it? Am I dealing with a lending protocol? Am I dealing with a like a gambling protocol? Is this a vault or whatever? Um, Next thing is the flows. Like which paths can I take? Like we go from say we if it's a lending, we have like function A, which is provide collateral. Then we have B, which is borrow. Then we have C, and like we need to get all those possible functions and paths in our head. And when you have that, then you go into detail, like like function A uh, forms like calls function B, but before it does that, it's gonna use a variable which is change it, which will be changed to whatever we input, and then it's given to function B, which does all kinds of stuff. So that's a really quick part of the mental mind map you're going to create. It's actually way bigger. So I'm going to give a real a small piece of preview from the like YouTube channel on the subjects I'm going to create. And which is like when you're starting out, and this is when you're starting out a new subject or a new job, or in case of this, like so new code base of smart contracts, what's going to happen is you start completely blank. So let's say we have like crypto, which is a blockchain and EVM, and then we have smart contracts which live on the EVM, and each smart contract can be like can have tokens, and tokens could be like ERC20 tokens or rebasing tokens or both. So these tokens or the EVM itself and the smart contracts could have vulnerabilities, which could be signature replay. So that's all context which will help you to know what you are and what you're actually reading. So when you start out, let's say like you're totally new to Web3, and the first thing you read about it is an article about, let's say, reentrancy. So that's the first point of contact you encounter with Web3. So it's going to look like this. So at the top part, you're reading about reentrancy, but you have no idea actually what you're reading, and this can be kind of frustrating because sometimes you're trying to, like, let's say in this case reentrancy, you're trying to learn something about it, but you're reading the article, and you're rereading every line like four or five times, but you have no idea what you're reading. So that's because you know the context of this all. Like you're only seeing reentrancy. So um, but when you're as you like advance, you create, like, you have an overview of everything, and you get to an article which talks about reentrancy. You're instantly able to know what the article is saying, because if the reentrancy article is indicating, like, yeah, there's a reentrancy which has been exploited by which is an ERC 777 contract, which has been um, re-entered through function B of another smart contract, which is inherited by, like, the exploited contract. You immediately know, like, what's happening and what's going on. So, and this is on a high level overview. Also, what you're doing on, reading a smart contract or a code base, and you're trying to audit it. So, um, I could it. So yeah. So as an auditor, that's what you need to create as soon as possible. So when you're starting a code base, going back to the picture again, you actually start here, and where it says reentrancy is like, it's actually like let's say a contract which you're starting with. And along the way, the thing what you want to do is you want to create a high level overview where all of these aspects are in your head. So as soon as you have that, you can go over the flows and details. And if any function mentions anything, you immediately are able to know, like, this function calls another function which is in another contract. So I know what it's doing. It's an external call.
Can I make a question here, brother? Um,
Yeah, sure.
how related the mind map is to a state machine? Because I see people talking so much about state machines, like during, but I have no idea what they mean. Because at first, I thought state machine was like formal verification, mathematical proving. But then I found out the state machines are actually you manually describing how the state changes during whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. So the reason everybody talks about a mental mind map is because eventually everything is being executed according to it. So like, where the state machine is pure technical, it's always brought to all kind of paths which it can walk or go through, which is always executed by us. So, um, in order to understand those, you need to have it clear, like, in your head, what exactly is happening. I don't know if that's
Awesome.
an answer to your
Yeah,
question.
yeah, yeah. So basically, you need to have a pretty good vision of the mind map to start the state machine.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. So, if we go back to the importance of knowing this mind map as an auditor, I'm gonna, like, go back to the example again of where you will close your eyes and basically, like, imagine your house, you're at your front door. So if I would say go to the first room and then go to the second room, you're able to do that. But if I would say, like, go, you start again at the front door, and I will tell you to, in your mind, go to the second room. without passing the first room. So you're immediately able to either do that in your mind, or you would tell me like that's impossible. It's I cannot go to the second room without passing the first room. Either it's not possible, or I have to break down like a wall. Um, so, and this is actually exactly the role as a security researcher or an auditor or whatever you call it. Like the job is to spot the scenarios, what it should do and what it shouldn't do, because a protocol will come to you and like ask you like we have a code base, and it's this kind of a protocol, and it should do this and it shouldn't do that, which at some point are like invariants. And it's your job to spot like what the scenarios are and what it should do in your opinion, and what it shouldn't do. So only when like you know the code base, like you know your house, you will be able to do that. So that's why it's like the fundamental of being an auditor, to get that mind map in your head. Because if you look at, if you ever have been like auditing with a team or whatever, and you're as a junior and you have a senior, like you will notice when if you went through the whole code base and you ask them a question like, I think we can exploit this with function A and then function B because this variable isn't set correctly. Usually they're like immediately able to tell you like that might be an option, or no, that's no option because it's because it's locked in another scenario. So that's like how the seniors have an exact image of the code base. So let's dive into the do's and don'ts. Again, like I'm not really here to tell you what to do and what not to do, but look at it as a more of a best practices. So it's the first thing you have to do is shift your mindset from where are the bugs to how does this work. So there was a big thing when I started, because when I started, I was like, okay, where the bugs at? I just like want to know where they are so that I can submit them. But what that actually does is it's only going to get you the low hanging fruit at max. So
You know,
those are like,
I never thought about this, but this is an amazing statement. I always approach code on thinking on how to find the bugs, but if I was thinking, hey,
mhm.
how does this work, that would be so much more effective.
Yeah, yeah, thanks. Yeah, so what actually happens is if you go to a state of mind of wanting to know how this works, um, the bugs will come by itself for the most part, actually, and it will be the unique vulnerabilities. So if you spot just if you go into the code base into a contest and you're like, what are the bugs, and you're just going to mostly spot like the exploits or the bugs where you would say like, yeah, it's use safe transfer instead of transfer, or this is not compatible with fiat and transfer ERC20 tokens, which either are duplicated to like infinity, or it's already picked up by bots, so we don't like have a role in there anymore. So if you go to the state of mind of how does this work, really want to understand is like, how did the developers like envision this part. um Basically, that's what's going to get you those unique abilities, and to able to deep dive a little bit more, because since you really want to know how it works, you're creating a mind map, and you're able to easily walk through paths or scenarios which you think will provide a vulnerability. So this is a Twitter post from Trust, like also mentioning the same uh, state of mind is like he breaks it down as 4 steps. The first step is like break a software down into building blocks. Then the step two is clearly define the relationships between these blocks. Step three is conjoin those blocks into more abstract modules. And only after step three, consider security. So this is the key point. All of like almost all of the successful auditors, they all mention like in the beginning they were just trying to spot vulnerabilities, and when they changed their state of mind to just wanting to understand the code base, that's when they got profitable. That's when they spotted the vulnerabilities. So again, I'm gonna to mention this, like this is the best practices. If this doesn't mean that like it also works for you, it's a perfect starting point which which is best for beginners. But if we take like one of the top auditors like Zach O'Brant, like what he does is he mixes step four with step two and three. Like he goes to the code base, and if he spots a place which might end up in a vulnerability without knowing the whole code base yet, he gives himself some time, like 10 or 15 minutes, to just dive into it, and and that's it. He just goes back to scanning the code base and understanding it. So like this is a guideline. It's like getting your driving license. When you're practicing, and the instructor is going to give you a guideline for the best practices um, of driving. And then when you get your driving license, you're going to like develop your own style of riding, which is based on those best practices. So going further, we get so after this this final slide, I'm going to go into like a code base, which was a contest on C4. Oh no, sorry, on Sherlock. I'm going to show you how I exactly get to that architecture overview or the mental mind map. So, but before we start, I do want to mention like this: when you start out and creating a mental mind map, you're gonna to have to digest every part. Which, well, you don't have to, but this is what I'm going to advise. So, do you remember? You might remember, like at school when we have had equations, like even if you knew the answer right away or after just one step, you had to write down every step, or like it will be get invalidated at an exam. Well, this was actually the case where I live. I'm not sure about everyone else, but this was the case at our place, which frustrated me because I was like, I knew the answer, so here it is. What does it? Why does it matter that I have to like provide every step? But then I started to like see the importance of it. So when you're starting out, and that's also what I'm going to do with the demo, I'm going to like start from the beginning and write a lot down, like from every step, which sometimes might seem like not needed, but it will help you to approach an audit step by step and also understand every step. So as you progress, like if you go to a code base and you do that in like let's say 7 steps, like as you progress, you will be able to do it with the next time with 5 steps, and the next time with first 4 steps, for example. So for now, I'm gonna like going. I'm gonna give the demo, and I'm gonna not per se pretty detailed about it, but I'm gonna write a lot of stuff. So bear with me. My writing is not like really good, but I'm gonna try my best. So Yes. So let me just exit this. So I'm gonna start with a code base from from a contest or which happened on Sherlock. It's the cooler project which happened, which is already conducted. Let me just put this here, put this here. Okay, so let's just start. So, by the way, anyone that has questions, forgot to say that. Sorry. Uh, do provide them in the chat, and when the demo ends, I'll just go through everything. So let's just start with this code base. It's a pretty small code base, and we can see that there are four contracts. So we got the clearinghouse, we got the cooler.sol, cooler callback, cooler factory. So first step, what I want to know is like what is all this and what does one contract have to do with one of the others. So and like is will clearinghouse ever call cooler or call cooler callback or whatever. So let's just like have a quick look uh, uh, at each contract. So let's start with clearinghouse. It's at the top, so that's why I picked it. I don't necessarily like have an order. I just go find them all. So in order not to complicate this demo a lot, I am going to use the comments provided, which tells a lot. But obviously, it's a good example to like get this code base in Studio Code and use an extension which removes all the comments in order for you to like not be biased and to learn to like extract the information about it. Like it's a lending facility for which says a lot, but will be a really good exercise to just find that out by reading the functions. But so the contracts, this is this better or okay? Is this better? So well, if I let me check. Uh, are you guys able to see this drawing, or is it a little bit too small? Yeah, are you able to see this drawing here on the right side? Okay. Let me quickly stop streaming and check. Think you're able to see two browsers now? Yeah, and the drawing is okay, right? Perfect. So let's make this a little bit bigger. Okay, cool. So, well, now we know this is a lending protocol. So let's just write lending here. So and this is the part I talked about with the image with the different blocks, like the circles with blockchain, smart contracts, and all. So when I see that it's a lending protocol, I immediately get in my head. So okay, we can lend money, we can borrow money, and we can repay. So this and maybe liquidate a position, but on top of mind, this is like when lending protocol. These are the three main entries. So, but just keep that in mind. But this is the part where, like, if you have a lot of context, just get easier. Cool. So we have this contract which is named, right, let's go back, which is called clearinghouse. So if we go at the top, we can see that it imports an ERC20, the logic from ERC4626, some contracts from Olympus here also. So in here, supported interface. This is so now we're looking at this. It's importing a contract, Cooler Factory, and the Cooler Factory we saw in the code base here. So, and that's also for Cooler Callback. So I'm guessing this contract clearinghouse is going to call functions which is in either Cooler Callback or in Cooler Factory. So let's start by writing Cooler of a clearinghouse here. So you got clearinghouse dot so. So my writing is really bad. Sorry for that, guys. So we can see here. We can see here it says here is policy roles consumer and cooler callback. So let's write that down. So this is also the logic of policy from I'm gonna write RC and cooler callback dot solve. So that means that in these contract, the logic in contract and the variables is also in clearinghouse. So policy and rules consumer, I don't see those contracts in the code base, but that's what me that means that it's I know it's out of scope, but this is typically something you will want to know, like what's in here, how does it work. But cooler callback is like in the code base we just saw, so that's got something to look at about. So quickly diving into like the code base, I'm not going into details, so I'm not going to like look at this or these variables yet. And I'm also going to skip the view and pure functions because those are eventually being called by the external functions. So I'm not going to look at anything except for the constructor and like the external functions. So we got the constructor here, and it seems like it's calling policy, which is a contract, and it's calling cooler callback, which both have a constructor since it's inputting like it's getting the input. So that's fine. We're still at clearing house. So let's go through the functions. This is an external view functions. I'm going to skip for now. So now we're saying link to cooler. And actually, I want to know like what does clearinghouse have to do with all the other contracts? So let's just go quickly over this and see here that like factory dot created in an if function. So I'm guessing we have a factory which is Cooler Factory and it's being called here. So let's just write that one down. We have Cooler Factory. So and it has an external call for here. So and it's calling created. So cool. So this is the part. This is a start of the mind map. So we have this contract which is also having the functionalities of these contracts, and we have our first path to Cooler Factory. So okay, let's go further. So now I'm seeing cooler.collateral. So it's also making a call to the a cooler contract. So let's write that down. So, so, so making a call or to there. So let's go a little bit further. So we got another call, which is approved. So this is just I'm just scanning this, seeing if I can like see the calls in order to know like when is it called, how is it called. So at this moment, I just want to know which contract is clearinghouse calling and a little bit when. And then I'm going to dive into like Cooler Factory or Cooler, like what does it do? So I'm seeing here lend to Cooler. So I'm guessing like this clearinghouse is lending for some funds to Cooler, but I'm not sure yet. So I have here a role loan, which again calls the factory and also calls the Cooler. So I'm seeing here some transfer functions, which is from message.send to address this. So if we see like these little bit more details, this is the second part what we're going to go over through. So first, I just want to know how are these contracts created and how are they being called? So let's see here, this is an external function, just going through it, seeing if like this is a loop, which is fine. That's not what I'm looking, but I'm looking like, this is going to be called again. So at the second part, I'm gonna lay out like what are the scenarios, when is this being called in what function and how many times, etc. So this is some logic, which is fine. This is all details, some transfer functions. So now we got to the internal functions, which at this point I don't really care about because the internal functions will be called through external functions. So that to me are the details. So we got rebalance, just does some internal work, call some other contracts with some logics which is imported. That's fine. Some public functions. Okay. Oh, that's emergency. Oh, so we got the emergency shutdown over here, which is important to note. I'm not gonna write it down just yet because this is just a detail of the possible functions in it, which definitely will be the second part, but not now. So okay, cool. I have like a pretty overview of what kind of functions it has. And I know that like clearinghouse calls both the cooler and the cooler factory. The thing that I didn't see is no wait, it's here. So yeah, so and it is the cooler the clearinghouse is the cooler callback. So now we have all the four functions, four contracts noted in here from the point of view of clearinghouse, meaning like clearinghouse will either call like this contract, which it's itself and has functions, and it's going to call cooler, and it's going to call cooler factory. So get to the second part. Let's get to the second contract, which is the cooler. So let's like I'm gonna skip this part for now, but I'm seeing that contract cooler is cloned. So and clone is this other contract, which is kind of out of scope, but let's just write it down here. Since we will need to know what is actually what it is exactly. So going further, I can see here request loan. I'm guessing the logic is in this contract now. I'm gonna skip these pure functions and just going to okay request loan, which transfers functions from message start sender to this, and it emits an event, which is fine by now. I'm not too concerned about events. Resigned request. Okay, so we can also like look at the comments, cancel a loan request and get the collateral back. So prepay loan, not seeing any calls from here. So it's called the fact it's calling the factory, but um not like a function which does something, just an event. So let's see at this cooler callback. So this is kind of, if we go to drawing, calling the functions over here, the cooler callback. So let's like a row loan. Let's see what this does. I'm just scanning like what does it so again a transfer from and interacting with the cooler callback logic. So delegate voting, it's this logic is still into the contract, and I'm like really want to know like is this cooler contract going to all cooler factory or have all the calls with cooler clearing house? So let's go back. Clear request function. Not really seeing like yeah. So it's here is the callback function again, and again the same event. Let's write that down because I want to know eventually like what do these events do? Like eventually I want to know if there's a vulnerability in it, but I don't think so, but let's just write it down. So this is still the logic into the contract. It's not like it's not really performing an external call to any of those contracts. So just quickly checking. Okay, so it looks like the cooler contract is kind of an ending path. So if it's possible that we start at a cooler factory, which might call clearinghouse, which eventually might call cooler, or like as the name implies, cooler factory, which will deploy a cooler contract, and that's it. We will have to look later. We might not get that far in terms of the time, but for now, it look like cooler is the endpoint. So let's dive a little bit into the cooler contract. So what I personally like to do, and we're now going to a little bit of details, is to start from the user point of view. Like if you have a lending protocol, I'm going to look at the like request loan or borrow function and like just start from there because eventually if you like let's say we start at a cooler contract and we look at the borrow function, that will probably have some functions which are dependent of the clearinghouse. And like eventually we will also come to the fact like where this cooler contract come from, which will probably be from cooler factory. So but let's dive into like the cooler uh law contract. And I'm gonna give this like the session like 5 minutes, max 10, and then we're gonna to wrap it up. Just to give you an idea on how to create like a quick overview. So we have a quick. So as I said, a lending protocol usually has like a lend, a borrow function, uh, a repay, right? So let's dive into the contract and just like, point out the scenario. So let's start at the top. There was a function which is started. So request loan. Let's see what it does. So it creates a request ID and pushes that to whatever this is. And then it for the collateral, it saves transfers from message.sender to address this and perhaps makes a calculation. So I'm gonna go pretty fast into this. So looks like we have an entity which is user A for the cooler contract. And looks like I'm gonna write down the important stuff, which is you call request loan, which eventually basically creates a request ID, but it also transfers funds to the address. So transfer, and this creates a request ID. So cool. Okay. So what happens if this is set? So like if we go back to here, we have lend, borrow, repay. This is like a request loan, which is in this part. Let's go to the second function. So this is cancel a loan request and get the collateral back. So in order not to make it too complicated, let's skip this part. It's not really like part of these three. So repay loan, which usually is the last part. So gonna skip that one for now. I have a roll loan, roll over loan with new terms. So this indicates like it already has a loan, right? So, but I want to like know where is this borrow function? What happens after the request loan? So I have this layer request, and the comments indicate fill a request loan as a lender. So okay. So that's probably the second part, and you can see it. Like, that's this part. Like it gets the request ID from some function, sets a request to false, and creates a loan ID, and then what it does, it performs the transfer from whoever is calling it to owner for the request amount. So, okay, so guessing entity B does, it takes the request ID and then it calls what's the name of the function, clear request, which transfers funds to entity. I'm guessing like it says owner, which is something to note, but let's assume it sends funds to whoever because I don't know who the owner is. So okay, cool. So now we have this path, which is the borrow part. So where is repay? Okay, so we saw the function above here, roll loan, repay loan. So okay, we're at the last part. Seems like the last part. So we get the loan idea. Let me this last function creates loan idea. Cool. So then what happens? We have some check functions which we're gonna do, which you should do after this. So perform some logic. I'm just going to quickly read them. So it's take the loans. Then it's going to save transfer from message sender to repay to and repay. So it's getting message sender. So it could be new entity which takes that loan ID, calls repay loan, and transfers it to repay to. So I'm not sure who here, but let's say we don't know yet. And then it safe transfers to the owner of this contract. So it probably does also safe transfer. owner. And then it meets an event. And so, okay, awesome. So now we have this, we have a basic function of an entry function of a user. So, and obviously we have some questions. So, and who is this and who is this? And like eventually you get to the question like, okay, so loan is like money is being transferred to this person. So that are those are the questions like which will follow when you answer questions like, okay, who is repay to? Where is that coming from? So okay, repay to is coming from, it's defined here, but it's eventually defined like decided who repay to is by an if and of else if or else statement. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna take this scenario, and this was in the last part, I guess. Yeah, this was in the last part. So in C, you're going to define there are a couple of things like say it gets the loan, it's the loan ID, which is an input. We have an if statement. Oh, sorry. We have a work. We have an if statement. Then, and what does this if statement do? We have another if statement and another if statement, and then some amount is being deducted from the loan. So you're gonna write that down, and you're gonna check like okay, so this is what the function is doing. Like, but why? And how is decided, why is it is it the loan the lender if the first if statement hits. So this isn't what we're not going to do now, but this is the details which you will going to have to cover when you have set up these scenarios. So this is, let's say this is scenario one which you encountered, which is from and user point of view. So the next part is what you're going to do is what you want to do is next to like getting to find out what this exactly is there, let's say this is scenario A, is there also a scenario B which lives next to this scenario or like can live next to can be altered with function A. So we have this is step one, step two, step three. Can we do three, two, and one? Is that a scenario? So, or can we do one through three and two, or whatever? So this is where you're going to call, where you check like every steps. Like this is how it should work, I think. But is this also valid? Is this how it should work? This also like we can ask the developers, but we want to know for ourselves. And
That's really
when you
interesting.
get this,
One question here,
yeah,
bro.
thanks.
Did you
So,
break these blocks to irreducible steps, right? Because those that will be the only way for you to invert the order of execution, right?
sorry, could you repeat it?
Broken all these blocks of execution, let's call it like that,
Mhm.
into irreducible steps, right? Like trust defining the tweet that he did,
Mhm.
because otherwise
Yeah,
you wouldn't be
exactly.
able to like revert the execution. Because let's say you get the ID after running two, and when you're doing one tree, you don't have two in the end, and maybe you need the ID for four. So I don't know if you understand what I mean.
Mhm. Yeah. Totally get it. Yeah. I get it. Yeah. So, and that's why also you need to have the detail overlook over all these functions, and indeed, like these are like the blocks. Each of this function is a block, and it's like sometimes it's like Lego. Like how many? Like if we take these three blocks, what kind of construction with Lego can I make? Like this is the first one. It's like it's almost like playing. Like or can I do can I like break this or can I like like this or whatever. So you're gonna play around with it, but in order to do that, you got to like have a high level overview because let's say you want to build you want to build this block, but like in block two, it's going to call another function which kind of block that. So that's why like you need like first have the context of the high level overview, the architecture overview of all the contracts and the kind of the function and what it does, and then you get into like what are the flows. Like remember the
Yeah,
example with the rooms, go to room one, then room two, then you get into details. Like, okay, and I change the outcome of
yeah.
B in order to exploit.
I mean, when
So
I say irreducible and something, this is really interesting because something that we need to understand, because here me and you talking, we are assuming that the developer was perfect writing the code and everything was perfectly executed in the flow of the program. But what happens usually is that the developer, had a short side in a lot of sites, and you're gonna end up being able to reorder some of these blocks.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. I sometimes even like compare it with a vending machine. Like the developers of a vending machine envisioned like you have to touch the buttons and enter money in order to get a candy. But what happens if I kick the machine? What happens then? Did they think about that? So that's a kind of thank you, thank you. So yeah, that actually wraps it up. So if you have any questions, should we go to the questions? Are there questions?
Amazing talk. Let me see if the community has questions in their blog,
Mhm.
codex. Guys, I'm gonna invite everybody to speak. So if you guys wanna open your mics and say something, reiterate Black Hat, feel free, okay? The beautiful, amazing talk. Let me ask you something. Are you Dutch?
Yes, I'm Dutch. Yes, indeed.
Awesome. I lived in Amsterdam for 2 years, bro. Amazing country, amazing city also. So loved it in
Yes,
there.
it is. It is. Yes, it is.
Looks like my friend here has a question. Ask. What do you want to ask? No, maybe not. So, oh, okay. I have questions in the text. So, my vision on that is that gives you, as a developer, very powerful tool because it's gonna allow you to see bugs that otherwise would be really hard to see. You're gonna have to fuzzle this forever. And as an auditor, it gives you a lot of attack strategies, so you can look at the program various different ways. So definitely enlightening, bro. The talk you did today.
Yes, yes. Thanks a lot. Be here.
I mean, you want to make a follow up? Just let me know. And regarding your, I'm gonna stop recording. So thank you so much. Don't I ain't
Mhm.
gonna close the talk now. I'm just gonna stop recording.